In the quiet hours before dawn, when most of the world still rests and the city hums only with distant traffic and the soft glow of streetlights, Craig Melvin begins a ritual that few viewers ever see, but that shapes every calm, measured word they later hear on television. For someone who has spent decades delivering stories that range from uplifting human triumphs to heartbreaking tragedy, the space between waking up and stepping under the studio lights has become sacred, a carefully protected window where he steadies his mind, gathers perspective, and reminds himself why clarity matters so deeply in a profession that often asks journalists to carry the emotional weight of the world. The ritual starts quietly at home, long before producers send the first rundown of the day's headlines. Craig rises early, not with the rush of alarms and urgent emails, but with deliberate stillness, the kind that allows him to feel grounded before the avalanche of information begins. And often he moves softly through the kitchen, brewing coffee while the house remains peaceful, the aroma drifting through the air like a gentle invitation to wake up slowly rather than abruptly. His wife, Lindsay Charniak, understands the rhythm of these mornings better than anyone, because she too has spent years in broadcast journalism and knows the invisible discipline behind a composed on-air presence. Sometimes she joins him with her own cup of coffee, and the two share a quiet conversation that has nothing to do with ratings, breaking news alerts, or political turmoil, but instead centers on simple things: family memories, gratitude, the reassuring familiarity of routine, which helps Craig remember that life exists far beyond the studio walls. For viewers in their 60s who have watched the evolution of television journalism across generations, there is something comforting in this image, a seasoned anchor beginning the day not with frantic urgency, but with reflection, acknowledging that wisdom grows from experience and that calm preparation can steady even the most unpredictable day. After coffee comes reading, but not the frantic headline scanning one might expect. Craig has learned that mental clarity begins with context, so he spends time absorbing stories slowly, letting their human dimensions settle in before thinking about how they will be presented to millions of viewers. And he often reflects on how different the profession feels now compared with the early days of his career, when younger journalists sometimes believed speed mattered more than understanding. Over the years, experience has taught him that viewers don't simply want information, they want perspective delivered by someone who has taken a moment to breathe. Another part of his ritual involves movement. Sometimes it's a short walk outside while the sky gradually shifts from darkness to the soft blue of morning. Sometimes it's light stretching or a few minutes of exercise, but the purpose is always the same: to remind his body that it is not merely a vehicle for stress, but a partner in resilience, something many people begin to appreciate more deeply as they move through their 50s and 60s and discover that emotional balance often depends on physical care as well. Craig has said privately to friends that the walk is where he organizes his thoughts, where complicated news stories become clearer, and where empathy finds room to grow, because distance from the screen allows him to remember that behind every headline are real lives unfolding in real time. By the time he reaches the studio, he is no longer simply reacting to information, he is prepared to guide viewers through it with steadiness. Lindsay's presence in his life reinforces that balance in ways that go beyond the visible routine. Having two journalists in one household means conversations about media responsibility happen naturally, often over dinner or during those early morning moments when the day's emotional tone has not yet been set. And their shared understanding of the pressures of broadcasting creates a quiet partnership built on mutual respect rather than explanation. For audiences who have spent decades watching the morning news as part of their own daily ritual, perhaps while making breakfast, reading the paper, or easing into retirement routines, there is reassurance in knowing that the calm voice delivering the headlines has cultivated the same kind of thoughtful preparation many people rely on in their own lives. Craig sometimes reflects on how the role of a news anchor changes with age. Younger journalists often chase urgency, but seasoned ones recognize the deeper responsibility of presence, the ability to look directly into the camera and convey both honesty and composure, even when the stories are difficult. That understanding is precisely why the morning ritual matters so much. Without those quiet moments of reflection, the emotional intensity of modern news cycles could easily cloud judgment. Yet with them, he enters the studio grounded, able to separate the chaos of the headlines from the clarity viewers need. The ritual doesn't guarantee that the day's news will be easy, far from it, but it ensures that he approaches each story with patience and perspective. And as the countdown to airtime begins, as producers adjust scripts and the familiar glow of studio lights fills the room, Craig carries with him the calm of that early morning coffee, the shared understanding with Lindsay, the quiet walk under the slowly brightening sky, and the steady reminder that journalism, at its best, is not about urgency alone, but about guiding people through the world's complexities with compassion and clarity. An approach that resonates deeply with viewers who have spent a lifetime learning that wisdom rarely comes from rushing, but from taking the time each morning to begin with a clear mind and an open heart.